This is Unsolved Requiem. In 1947, somewhere in the warm, crowded waters of the Strait of Malacca, a message cut through the static of maritime radio frequencies. It was not a frantic scream for help. It was not chaos. It was something far more disturbing. All officers, including captain, are dead. Lying in chart room and bridge, possibly a whole crew dead. There was a pause. Then, a final transmission. I die. And then, silence. No coordinates followed. No explanation. No further signal. The ship responsible for that message was identified as the Dutch freighter Ourang Medan. When rescuers finally reached it, they found a vessel drifting quietly under an open sky. The sea was calm, the wind was light. Nothing in the surrounding waters suggested disaster. But the moment they stepped aboard, they realized something was terribly wrong. The year was 1947. The world was still emerging from the shadow of the Second World War. Trade routes were reopening. Military surplus cargo was being redistributed. Chemical stockpiles were quietly moved across oceans. The global order was fragile and shifting. The Strait of Malacca was one of the busiest maritime corridors on Earth, a narrow passage connecting the Indian Ocean to the Pacific. Merchant ships, naval vessels, and cargo freighters crossed these waters constantly. It was here that two American ships intercepted the distress signal. At first, the message seemed garbled. Radio interference was common. Storms, solar activity, even basic mechanical limitations could distort communication. But this message was clear enough to understand that something catastrophic had happened aboard that vessel. The coordinates were approximated. A rescue team was dispatched. As they approached the Ourang Medan, there was no visible sign of damage. The hull appeared intact. No smoke rose from its decks. No crew stood waiting at the railing. The ship drifted, silent, abandoned, and yet not abandoned at all. Boarding a distressed vessel is usually chaotic. Injured sailors, emergency repairs, confusion. This time there was nothing, no shouting, no footsteps. No movement. The first body was discovered near the railing of the main deck. A crew member lay flat on his back. His eyes were open, his expression fixed. There was no visible wound. No sign of struggle. Further exploration revealed more bodies. Along the deck, inside corridors, near equipment stations. The captain was found in the chart room. Officers were scattered across the bridge. The radio operator remained seated at his station, headphones still around his neck. Even the ship's dog lay dead nearby. Every single member of the crew appeared to have died suddenly. But it was not simply death that unsettled the boarding party. It was the expressions. Witnesses later described the faces as frozen in terror. Eyes wide open, brows raised, mouths partially agape, arms slightly extended as though attempting to push something away. It was as if, in their final seconds, every person aboard had witnessed the same horrifying sight. And whatever they saw had no physical form. There were no bullet wounds, no knife marks, no signs of physical violence. The sea had not been rough. There were no signs of collision. The ship appeared structurally sound, and yet everyone was dead. The boarding crew moved cautiously through the interior. The air felt heavy. Some later accounts mention that certain compartments felt unusually cold, despite the tropical climate outside. Others described a faint smell, something chemical perhaps, though no definitive source was identified. Down in the cargo hold, the atmosphere changed again. It felt warmer. Condensation clung to the interior walls. The rescue team began investigating more closely. But before they could complete their examination, smoke began to rise from below deck. At first, it was subtle, then it thickened. The decision was immediate: evacuate. Within minutes of abandoning the vessel, a violent explosion tore through the hull. Flames erupted upward into the darkening sky. The Ourang Medan burned briefly, and then slipped beneath the surface. Whatever evidence might have explained the deaths was gone. The sea closed over it. And with it, the answers. In the days that followed, speculation spread quickly. An entire crew dead without visible injury. A distress message describing total fatality. An unexplained explosion. But official documentation was strangely thin. Some maritime historians have struggled to locate definitive registry information for the Ourang Medan. Newspaper clippings mention the case years later. Maritime journals reference it. But primary records are limited and inconsistent. This has led some researchers to question whether the incident was exaggerated or even fabricated. However, the story persists across multiple independent sources, and the core elements remain consistent. A ship, a message, a dead crew, expressions of terror, an explosion, a disappearance beneath the sea. The most widely accepted explanation involves chemical cargo. Post-war shipping was complex. Many vessels transported surplus material from wartime stockpiles. Some shipments were not publicly declared. It has been proposed that the Ourang Medan may have been carrying hazardous substances such as potassium cyanide. If improperly stored, cyanide can release hydrogen cyanide gas, a lethal compound capable of causing rapid death. In high concentrations, victims may experience dizziness, confusion, shortness of breath, and collapse within minutes. But even this explanation leaves questions. Cyanide poisoning often results in seizures and visible physical distress. Would it produce a uniform expression of terror across an entire crew? Would it leave no clear evidence behind? And what of the explosion? There's another layer to this mystery, one rooted not in science but in psychology. When people die suddenly in groups, the human mind searches for meaning. Sailors are accustomed to danger. They face storms, mechanical failure, isolation. But mass death without struggle feels unnatural. The image of those faces, frozen in fear, is what transformed this case from tragedy into legend. The waters of the Strait of Malacca have long been associated with maritime danger, piracy, smuggling, unstable political movements in the late 1940s. Some have speculated that the Ourang Medan may have been involved in clandestine transport of undeclared materials. If the cargo was illegal, official records may have been intentionally obscured. But even secrecy does not account for the expressions on those faces. Fear is a powerful biological response. It is immediate, instinctive, and deeply human. For an entire crew to share that same expression suggests they experienced something at the same time. Something sudden, something overwhelming. The sea has always concealed more than it reveals. It erases evidence. It softens memory. It transforms fact into myth. But certain details refuse to fade. A distress signal intercepted in 1947. A silent ship drifting beneath a calm sky. An entire crew dead without visible wounds. And a final message that ended not with a plea, but with acceptance. I die. If the explanation lies in unstable cargo, then the Ourang Medan is a cautionary tale about secrecy and negligence. If it lies in suppressed documentation, then it is a reminder that truth is sometimes submerged deliberately. If it lies in simple accident, then it is proof that even the most mundane causes can produce haunting outcomes. But if it lies somewhere else, if what happened aboard that ship was something we have yet to fully understand, then the ocean is still keeping its secret, and somewhere beneath dark water, the remains of that vessel drift in silence. A steel tomb, carrying with it the final words of a man who knew he would not survive the night. I die. This has been Unsolved Requiem.